If I'd been slightly more organized this week, this sermon might have had a title printed in the bulletin. It's probably just as well I remained disorganized, since I still haven't settled on a final name. Started with hope in a hopeless world, then hope versus suffering, the big brawl, hanging on to hope, and let's just leave it at hanging out with hope, because this is a big old topic and we're going to ramble a bit. I don't know about you, but I've found it frighteningly easy to lose hope lately. And when I say lately, I mean the last 8 years or so. As individuals, families, congregations, communities, and countries, we deal nonstop with a worrisome world. And thanks to the omnipresence of electronic media, we don't have to miss a single appalling moment. Even better, the internet allows us the option to dog paddle in the sea of hopelessness together, like a group activity at summer camp. But the present day doesn't have a monopoly on suffering. At the risk of depressing us all, let me name drop some of the all-time greatest hits. Plague, famine, war, pestilence. History is littered with these hope killers, and they're still hanging around in the present. What this tells us is that we can expect scary stuff to continue because there has always been scary stuff. Bad things continue to happen to good people and bad people. But with hopelessness and suffering on the eternal docket, how do we maintain hope in the face of the world? In general, we persevere. It's how humanity is wired. Not everyone, not all the time, but parts of humanity have made it through every hit of historic hopelessness. People do make it out the other end of all these dark tunnels and continue forward into the waiting sunlight. Every time someone, some group, manages. Author Anne Lamott may have said it best. Hope is a reminder that I have been here before, in circumstances just as frightening, and I came through and will again. This is what I call big hope. Hope that we often have as a like-minded group. Hope we don't have to maintain all on our own. But there's also small hope, something to keep on hand for hope emergencies. Unsurprisingly, my hope talisman is made of words. I came across this passage by actor and comedian Patton Oswalt a few years ago. I was mired in what felt like a hopeless time where things were very difficult in my personal life and with my health, and the outside world was too frightening and nauseating to even contemplate. Oddly, the phrase that keeps my hope afloat sprang from a hopeless event, the Boston Marathon bombing on April 15th, 2013. Sometime that night, Oswalt took to Facebook to share his thoughts. I've cherry-picked here, but I'd recommend looking it up because it's worth reading in its entirety. This is a giant planet, and we're lucky to live on it, but there are prices and penalties incurred for the daily miracle of existence. One of them is, every once in a while, the wiring of a tiny sliver of species gets snarled, and they're pointed toward darkness. But the vast majority stands against that darkness. They dilute and weaken and eventually wash away the evildoers, and more importantly, the damage they wreak. So when you spot violence or bigotry or intolerance or fear, or just garden variety misogyny, hatred, or ignorance, just look it in the eye and think, The good outnumber you, and we always will. Honestly, I feel a little shiver every time I say those final words. I'd never pondered the concept that good had such an obvious advantage over evil. I find truth in that phrase and an immense amount of hope in saying, and we always will. Those words became a protective garment for me. They armor me against the slings and arrows of the outside world at its worst. They wrap me in a cozy blanket to stave off personal pain that's laid me low. I repeat them when I'm feeling completely overwhelmed and about to be crushed flat. And also in my world, there's tiny hope. I am the queen of anxiety and depression. I have rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, sleep apnea, and so much more. On the face of it, I'm a mess. And there are mornings when I've slept poorly, half of me aches, half of me is in aggressive pain, and I know my day is going to involve a lot of sitting and sleeping. Sometimes when those are the building blocks of my day, the best I can do on the hope front is hope that I feel better tomorrow. But sometimes I can gather enough scraps of hope that just knowing I'm lifting up my little bit of the world in faith and prayer makes it a good day. I have come to believe that hope is God's reset button. The whole world can feel and look like a dumpster fire these days. And through the blessing of the internet, we can see evil, hatred, bigotry, violence right in front of us every moment of day and night. When the news and social media diet we consume is so strongly weighted toward the bad, it can be very easy to give up, to lose faith, to lose hope. We have to be able to tame grief, to triumph over despair, to take that next step when we're still up to our knees in mud. Having that hope button to press for a reset after a period of suffering is what allows us to get through. It allows us to be among those people that emerge from the dark tunnels, squinting at the sun of a new day. A therapist once told me, hope by its very nature implies uncertainty. I think that's genius. When hoping, we're favoring a certain outcome from a decision or event that hasn't happened yet. But hope is incredibly powerful, regardless of its size and its uncertainty. And the New Testament is literally awash in exhortations to keep hope in our toolkit, as we heard in Romans earlier. Chapter 5, hope does not disappoint us. Chapter 12, rejoice in hope, be patient in suffering, persevere in prayer. Hope is a constant state of wishing the world well, of lifting it up, of sending love and faith to the planet and its people, and believing all will be well and that this too shall pass. We hold the world up with our hope. We support our community with our hope. Some of us get out of bed in the morning because of that hope. It can be some mighty heavy lifting. We can do a lot with hope on our own, but I like to think of joining my hope with others. We're all part of lifting up our people and our planet, like when we join in song or prayer here on Sundays. It's the pieces that we weave into a sturdy basket that lends strength to those in weakness, ease to those in pain, and support to those in need. We all take our turns, giving and receiving, as we're able. Life is filled with troubling times, agonizing losses, painful defeats. Paul tells us over and over in today's passage, bad is going to happen in all sizes, flavors, and durations. But good is going to do the same. And if we process these things in a group as well as individually, I think we'll make it through. Once again, Anne Lamott. We might hope that this or that will happen and be disappointed. But when we instead have hope in the resilience and power of the human spirit, in innovation, laughter, and nature, we won't be. Amen.